My best friend secretly stole my girlfriend, but I got revenge and slept with a woman who helped me to uncover. I found out about Jake and Sarah on a Tuesday night, scrolling X half drunk on cheap beer. Some random account posted a blurry photo. Two people tangled up outside a bar, her hair spilling over his shoulder. I zoomed in. That jacket was his. That laugh, thought mid-frame, was hers. My best friend and my girlfriend, sneaking around like I wouldn't notice. My stomach twisted, but I didn't throw the phone or punch a wall. I just sat there, staring at the screen until it went black. Jake and I had been tight since high school. He was the guy who'd crash on my couch when his dad got mean, the one who'd split a pizza with me when I was broke. Sarah came later. 2 years of late-night talks, her stealing my hoodies, me thinking it meant something. Turns out it didn't. I should have seen it coming. He'd been texting her more lately, asking about her day when I was right there. She'd laugh it off, say he was just being friendly. I bought it because I didn't want the fight. The next morning, I didn't call them out. I went to work, hauled boxes in the warehouse, let the ache in my arms drown out the noise in my head. I kept replaying it. Every time they'd been alone, every glance I'd ignored. By lunch, I wasn't sad anymore. I was pissed. They didn't just take what was mine. They thought I'd stay quiet about it. That's what stung most. They figured I'd roll over. I saw Jake that night at his place. He didn't know I knew. He cracked a beer, tossed me one, started rambling about some football game. I nodded, sipped, waited. His phone buzzed on the table. Her name popped up. He grabbed it fast, too fast, and mumbled something about work. I almost laughed. Work doesn't text you at 9 p.m. with a heart emoji. I didn't say anything. Just watched him squirm, his lies piling up like trash he couldn't take out. Sarah called me the next day, voice all soft, asking to meet up. I said sure, picked a diner we used to go to. She showed up late, hair messy, eyes darting like she was scared I'd bolt. She didn't confess. Just sat there, picking at her fries, talking about nothing, weather, her job, some movie she'd seen. I let her ramble. Every word felt like a shovel digging her deeper. I didn't ask about Jake. Didn't need to. Her guilt was loud enough. That night, I started planning. Not some grand scheme, just small moves, quiet ones. I stopped texting them first. Let their messages sit unread. Jake noticed, asked if I was good. I said yeah, just busy. Sarah tried harder. Said pics of her dog, asked if I'd seen her scarf at my place. I left her on read. They didn't deserve my time anymore. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel it, the way I had, caught off guard, got punched alone. A week later, I saw my chance. Jake's band had a gig at this dive bar downtown. He'd been hyping it for months, saying it could be their break. Sarah would be there, cheering him on, probably thinking I'd stay home sulking. I didn't. I showed up early, found the sound guy, some dude I'd met at a party once. Slipped him $50 and a USB drive. Told him to play it during their set. He shrugged, pocketed the cash, didn't ask questions. The place filled up. Jake hit the stage, all swagger, guitar slung low. Sarah was up front, swaying, eyes locked on him. I stayed in the back, nursing a whiskey. 3 songs in, the sound cut out. Then it started, my voice, loud through the speakers. A recording I'd made that morning, raw and unscripted. Jake, you're a backstabbing prick. Sarah, you're not worth the dirt on my shoes. Enjoy your night. It looped twice before they killed it. The crowd went silent, then buzzed. Jake froze, face red. Sarah bolted for the door. I didn't stick around. Walked out, tossed the empty glass in a trash can, kept moving. My chest felt tight, but I wasn't sorry. They'd built their little world behind my back. Now it was crumbling, and I'd lit the match. I went home, crashed on the couch, scrolled X until I passed out. Revenge didn't fix anything, but it sure as hell felt good. I didn't hear from Jake or Sarah for days after the bar. My phone stayed quiet. No apologies, no excuses, just silence. I'd expected something, yelling tears, maybe a fist to my jaw. Nothing came. It was like they'd vanished, and I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. Work kept me busy, stacking boxes, dodging the foreman's barking, coming home to a fridge with nothing but beer and ketchup. Life didn't stop, even if part of it had burned down. The post on X about the gig went viral, though. People I didn't even know were tagging Jake's band, laughing about the mystery voice that tanked their set. Someone uploaded a shaky video, my words blasting over the crowd, his face going slack, her running out. I watched it once, then muted the app. Didn't need to relive it. I'd done what I'd done. No point staring at the wreckage. A week later, I ran into Jake at the gas station. He was pumping fuel into his beat-up truck, head down, cap pulled low. I could have kept walking, but I didn't. Stopped a few feet away, leaned against a pole, stared until he looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, jaw tight. He didn't swing or shout, just nodded, like we were strangers passing through. I nodded back. That was it. No words, no fight. Just two guys who used to mean something to each other, now nothing. Sarah texted me that night. One line. "You didn't have to do that." I read it, deleted it, didn't reply. She was right. I didn't have to. I wanted to. She didn't get to play victim after screwing me over. I blocked her number, then his. Cut them out like a bruise you don't want to keep pressing. It didn't erase what happened, but it made the days quieter. I started going out more after that. Not to bars or clubs, just places I hadn't been in a while. The park near my apartment, a coffee shop with cracked mugs, a record store that smelled like dust and old vinyl. Kept my head busy so it wouldn't loop back to them. One night, I ended up at this open mic thing downtown. Not my scene, but I was restless, and the air outside was too cold to keep wandering. That's where I met Lena. She was up there reading poetry, sharp stuff, all jagged edges and bite. No flowery crap, just words that hit like knuckles. I liked her voice, low and steady, cutting through the room. After her set, she grabbed a beer and sat 2 tables over, scribbling in a notebook. I didn't plan to talk to her. Just watched her for a bit, the way she chewed her pen, the way her boots tapped the floor. Then she looked up, caught me staring. Didn't smile or wave, just raised an eyebrow, like she was daring me to say something. I grabbed my drink, walked over, sat down without asking. She didn't kick me out. Asked what I thought of her poem instead. I said it was good, mean, real. She smirked, said most people called it depressing. We talked until the place closed, about music, dumb jobs, how people suck sometimes. No flirting, no games. Just 2 strangers who didn't feel like strangers. I didn't tell her about Jake or Sarah. Didn't need to. She wasn't a fix for that mess. She was just someone who made sense in a way they never did. We swapped numbers. Met up again a few days later. Coffee turned into walking around the city, kicking at leaves, trading stories. She'd been through her own shit, exes who lied, friends who bailed. Didn't dwell on it, though. Just shrugged and kept moving, like me. Meanwhile, Jake's band imploded. Word got around. The guitarist quit, the drummer stopped showing up. Their big break turned into a punchline. I heard Sarah moved out of her place, crashed with some cousin upstate. Didn't check if it was true. Didn't care enough to dig. They were fading, and I wasn't chasing their shadows anymore. Lena and I kept hanging out. One night, we ended up at my place, splitting a pizza, watching some old horror flick. She fell asleep on my couch, notebook still in her lap. I didn't wake her. Just tossed a blanket over her, sat there in the dark, listening to the TV buzz. It wasn't perfect or big or anything I'd planned, but it was something. And for once, I didn't feel like I was losing. Lena stuck around. Not in some clingy, permanent way, just enough to make my place feel less empty. She'd show up with takeout or a six-pack, sprawl on my couch, read her poems out loud while I cooked whatever scraps I had. I didn't call her my girlfriend. She didn't call me anything either. We just fit, like two pieces of junk that somehow worked together. It wasn't love or destiny or any of that noise. It was better, real, rough, no expectations. Jake popped up again a month later. Not in person, on X. Some rant about fake friends and trust being a lie, tagged with his band's old hashtag. Subtle as a brick. I scrolled past it, but it stuck in my head all day. He was still out there, licking his wounds, acting like he'd been wronged. I didn't bite. Didn't reply, didn't DM. Let him stew in his own mess. Sarah stayed gone. No posts, no rumors. She'd either figured out how to hide or just stopped existing in my world. Either way, I was done looking. Work got harder. They cut hours, piled on overtime for the rest of us. I'd come home beat, hands sore, back screaming. Lena didn't mind. She'd sit there, scribbling or scrolling her phone, not asking me to talk. I liked that. Sarah always wanted me to spill everything, like she could fix it. Lena just let me be. One night, I crashed early, left her on the couch. Woke up to find her gone, a note on the table. Had to run. Left you some coffee? Simple. No fuss. I drank it cold and went to work. The revenge thing faded. Not because I forgave them, screw that, but because it stopped mattering. I torched their night, watched them scatter, and that was enough. Didn't need to keep the fire going. Jake's life was falling apart without my help. Gigs canceled, band dead, him posting sad boy crap online. Sarah was a ghost. I'd won, sort of, but it didn't feel like a trophy. Just a thing that happened. Lena and I hit a rhythm. We'd meet up after her open mics or my shifts, wander the city, talk about nothing important. She'd tease me about my shitty taste in movies. I'd mock her for writing poems about streetlights. One time, we ended up at this pier, water lapping at the posts, sky all gray and heavy. She leaned on the railing, said she liked how I didn't try to impress her. I said I didn't have the energy to fake it. She laughed, and that was that. Then Jake showed up for real. Banged on my door one night, drunk, eyes wild. I opened it, saw him swaying there, reeking of whiskey and regret. He didn't swing or yell, just stood there, breathing hard, like he'd run out of steam. I didn't invite him in. Didn't say a word. He mumbled something about missing how it used to be, how he'd fucked up. I nodded, shut the door, locked it. Heard him stumble off. Didn't check the window to see if he was okay. He wasn't my problem anymore. Lena asked about it the next day, must have heard the noise from the couch. I told her the short version, old friend, old fight, over now. She didn't push. Just handed me a beer, went back to her notebook. I sat there, staring at the TV, not watching it. Jake's voice lingered, all slurred and broken, but I didn't feel bad. He'd made his bed. I'd made mine. Things with Lena kept going. We weren't some perfect couple. No big confessions, no plans. She'd crash at my place. I'd show up at hers. One night, she read me a poem about a guy who burned his past to the ground, walked away grinning. I asked if it was about me. She smirked, said maybe. I didn't press. Didn't need to. It was close enough. The warehouse laid me off a week later. Economy's trash, they said. I didn't panic, just started looking for something else. Lena helped, sent me links to jobs, didn't make it a thing. I landed a gig at a hardware store, hauling lumber, fixing displays. Pay was decent, hours sucked. Life kept moving. Jake and Sarah stayed gone. X stopped showing me their shadows. Last night, Lena and I split a pizza, watched the rain hit my window. She fell asleep mid-movie, head on my shoulder. I didn't move her. Just sat there, letting the credits roll, the room quiet except for her breathing. It wasn't a win, not really. I'd lost a friend, a girl, a chunk of who I used to be. But I'd found something else. Someone who didn't need me to be anything but me. Messy, sure. Imperfect, yeah. But it was mine.